A very good evening. My name is Sapna, and on behalf of the India chapter of the International Advertising Association and the Indian Society of Advertisers, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome each of you to this beautiful evening. An initiative that started almost 10 years ago, this evening is a definitive annual industry review offering a 360-degree perspective on the past year while illuminating the road ahead. Over the years, our speakers from across industries have shared insights that have played a pivotal role in shaping strategic agendas, and thus this is a very special evening for all of us at IAA and ISA. We're all gathered here to celebrate the illustrious past and also the promising future of the industry, where tonight we will hear insights that will ignite discussions and pave the way for the future filled with innovation, excellence, and creativity. And to officially begin, may I please invite on stage Mr. Avinash Pandey, President, IAA India Chapter. Put your hands together, everybody, for our very own Avinash sir. Hi, sir.
Well, thank you very much for coming this evening, friends. It's a momentous occasion today because first time in last 10 years of IAA Retrospect Prospect, we have partnered with ISA. Thank you, Sunil, for this partnership, and I see a great participation from your ISA community today in this event, and we are really very proud of it. The India chapter of International Advertising Association has always been at the forefront of the activities that benefit the Marcom industry. Even as we realize that creativity is the heart of that industry, we asked ourselves, who is this creativity for? And the answer was very obvious: for the brands that we all work for. Then we asked ourselves another obvious question, and who owns and nurtures the brand? And the answer is advertisers. And hence this great partnership with ISA. All through this year, my friends, Sunil, we have been calling CEOs and MDs for last 10 years to speak. Usually it used to happen, as Sam pointed out today in the board meeting also, that we used to do it in January, looking at the year ahead and the year gone by. We are slightly late this year, but I'm sure it is as informative and entertaining as it was. It can happen in January. And so right from conceiving the IAA Leadership Award, which are for the marketeers that IAA do, which will be happening this year again in July, to having an all advertiser jury for our successful creative awards called the India Awards. These days India is slightly this thing, but Indie IAA Awards, okay? And having an annual program called Retrospect and Prospect, which you are seeing, ladies and gentlemen, today here, where a leading marketeer gives us a perspective of the highest and the lowest of the last year and did some crystal ball glazing about the year ahead. We have always done this path-breaking initiatives through these events, and today is the beginning of one of that. And so in that spirit, we have also saluted collaboration and cooperation that had, it is the first one to happen between ISA and IA, and I'm sure together we can work for many more, Sunil. And I'm sure this model will be appreciated and emulated by our industry, where all of us come together and create a program like this. Keep watching IA events on your calendar, and I hope to see you again in our next event very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Short and sweet. It is now time to invite on stage Chairperson, Indian Society of Advertisers, with a huge round of applause. Put your hands together, everybody, and welcome Mr. Sunil Kataria.
Okay, good evening everyone, and it's indeed a great pleasure actually to be at this first collaborative event of IAA and ISA. So thank you Avinash for actually making this happen jointly, and I'm sure this is the first stepping stone towards a collaboration, and we'll do many more things together. As we all know, as many of you would be knowing, ISA actually represents a very unique body, the apex body of advertisers in this country. And as Avinash mentioned, advertisers are the ones who build brands, who nurture brands, along obviously with our partners, advertising agencies. We shouldn't forget that this is a joint big collaboration which happens on a daily basis between two communities together. And we have representations from so many of people known who have we have built jointly brands with. We actually as members of ISA, we contribute to roughly around 60% of India's non-government ad spend in this country. So that's the kind of representation that we have in our forum. We have played a very critical role, and we continue to play a critical role, and we endeavor to play a critical role in many parts of the industry ecosystem. One being, we have representation here from ASCII. We have been the founding partners of ASCII, and we work closely with ASCII to promote self-regulation and ethical advertising amongst our members, because that's a very, very important step, and there's some great work which is happening at ASCII under the leadership of Manish and the board that we have there. We also are the founding members of, and we're actually Bharat, who's here, who's a mentor of many of our bodies, and especially at ISA. We are founding members of World Federation of Advertisers. It's the largest global organization of advertisers. We work very, very closely with them on bringing best practices across from the globe into the country. One such piece which I would like to inform you is that this, around last 6 months back, we started rolling out, and we're working on the media charter as a big project in this country. The first rollout of that, the first part, which was the model media agency agreement template. So that's something which got rolled out in October last year. Now there are 4 more parts which we have on the last stages of closure, and which are very, very relevant ones for advertisers across, which is first party data, brand safety, ad fraud, and viewability. What we've also done is, in the spirit of collaboration, there are 4 different subcommittees which are currently working on each of these domains, and we have representations from FFI, IBDF, obviously ISA, Meta, Google, and many solution providers. And these 6 community bodies are working together with very deep work happening in each of these subcommittees. What I want to inform all of you is that we are on the verge of rolling this out roughly in the next 6 to 8 weeks, and we'll do a proper conference and proper rollout once this has got the last pieces have got tied up. And that I think will be a very important step towards building some global best practices in this large 4-5 domains that are very relevant in the coming times. So that's another big work that we do. As you all know, obviously we are one of the 3 bodies which have played a very critical role in constitution of BARC, which is the measurement system of TV in this country. We are on the board of BARC. We continue to work jointly with all the stakeholders there to ensure that India actually experiences a very strong, robust measurement system. Obviously, we have people here like Shashi is there. He plays a very critical role along with Bharat and many other representatives in building BARC together. So I think that's something which we see as a responsibility of ISA towards the ecosystem. We obviously are very happy that this collaboration is happening, and even more happy to see Manish here. As today we are really all looking forward to him. Kenvue or Johnson & Johnson, we still remember. That's what I tell him, J&J to bhulta nahi hai, right? No matter whatever name you change. They are members of ISA. So it's great to have an ISA member today talking here, and we are in the evening looking forward to hearing his insights. I personally think if you look at our country, there's some conversation we were having recently, and we said maybe we are all very fortunate to be in the right country at the right time in the world right now. Maybe there's no better place right now, or better country which is placed to have a huge growth story unraveling over the next maybe 10 to 15 years. And we are fortunate to be, participating in that one. So I think that's a very important place. It's the right time. It'll be great to see how the next, 2 or 3 years farm out. And I'm really looking forward to hear Manish as to how he sees the year gone by and how he sees the next 3 years coming by. So without wasting any more time, I think let's just get started and look forward to hearing Manish and having a conversation with all of you over the evening. Thank you so much.
Can I ask you to wait back, sir? Can I ask you to wait back? Yes, thanks. Thank you, sir. And of course, I request you to kindly wait back and invite Mr. Avinash Pandey, sir, back on stage. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Before we invite our speaker on stage, it is time to thank our partners without whom this evening wouldn't be possible. Let us give a huge round of applause for our presenting partner, Kenvue, who would be joining us. Of course, a representative from Kenvue would be joining us on stage as we present a token of our gratitude and love to the entire team of Kenvue. Thank you so much for joining us. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Our presenting partner, Kenvue. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you. And of course, our supporting partner, put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for ABP News. A representative from ABP News would be joining us right here on stage. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. Our supporting partner, ABP News. Thank you so much for your support. And we really appreciate it. Thank you. Now, put your hands together for our supporting partner, Fortune Edible Oils and Foods. A representative from Fortune Edible Oils and Foods would be joining us, is what I'm thinking right now. Yes, okay. All right. But thank you so much for your support, and thank you to our lovely presenters for this evening. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. It is now time to invite on stage our very special speaker for this special evening. The Managing Director, India at Kenvue, the world's largest consumer health company. With over 2 decades of experience in FMCG, his leadership has driven growth, innovation, and creativity. Formerly leading Kenvue Philippines, he spearheaded technology-driven strategies, propelling the region forward. His tenure at Johnson & Johnson Consumer Health showcased his digital-first approach, enhancing sales and e-commerce capabilities. Prior roles at Colgate, Palmolive, and PepsiCo India enriched his experience and expertise in brand marketing, sales, and customer management. An electronics graduate with an MBA from Tuck School of Business, USA, he balances academic acumen with real-world achievements. Beyond business, he enjoys golfing and traveling. My absolute pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. Let's extend a warm welcome to Mr. Manish Anandani, whose insights tonight promise to inspire and enlighten us all. My apologies, sir. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Manish Anandani. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm a little uncomfortable not moving. There is a lot of pressure since the time I have walked in, right? So I would say that please, there's a lot of pressure because I was talking to everybody and everybody's saying, we are looking forward to your talking about the crystal ball, what is going to be the future. I said, I wish I had a crystal ball, then I'll be running my own consulting rather than working for a company, right? So please keep your expectation adjusted. So let me just start by, first of all, I want to start by giving you a little bit about Kenvue because many of you may or may not have heard about Kenvue. Johnson & Johnson was an original company. We separated about a year back, last year, May. Johnson & Johnson listed us separately on a New York exchange. So now we are called Kenvue. So the consumer business was separated, even though the brands are same. So you can see on the chart, our brands are 135-year-old brands. Our company is 1 year old. So we call ourselves a 1 year old startup with a 135-year experience. And we are the largest consumer pure play health company in the world. We have 3 segments, right? Which is one is we call self-care or self-medication, where we have multiple brands. Some of the brands which you see on the chart are not in India. They are globally available, but not necessarily in India. Example, Tylenol. And we also have a skincare portfolio. This is where we have multiple brands. There are some of the brands which are available in India, like Neutrogena, Aveeno, and Clean and Clear. And then obviously we have Essential Health portfolio, where most of the brands are in India. This is what Kenvue is. In terms of its purpose, our purpose is very profound. Our purpose is realizing the extraordinary power of everyday care. And this is what we believe, that daily care routines and small movements of care is what we have, which can have a profound impact on the consumer's life. And that's where the purpose comes from for Kenvue. And I'll share some of the example how we bring this purpose to life as we go ahead into the conversation. Right? So this was the advertising or a PR on my company's behalf before I get started on the conversation. Right? Now, the way I have done my presentation is we'll talk about a little bit about how India is evolving as an economy. Then we will talk about, I'll talk about how is the impact of this economy is on consumer behavior and the shopper behavior, and what does it mean for all of us as a business team. And then eventually I'll close it with saying, at Kenvue, how are we capitalizing this knowledge into our brand's performance. So all of us know that India is a rising star. The growth forecast is very, very strong. And if you look at this chart, right, India is supposed to be a 5 trillion economy very soon by 2027. And if you look at the chart on the right side, the growth is really, really astonishing. And this is not a new news to any one of us. But the only point of this is to say that India is continuing to go very strong in time to come. And if you actually look at the impact of this, what is happening in the country is that our consumers are spending much more than what they were spending earlier. If you look at on the left-hand side chart, right, this is the household saving percentage of GDP. It's coming down. In other words, people are able to spend much more on the consumption than they were spending earlier. And on the right-hand side is the spend by the government, which is also putting much more money into the consumer hand, right? So overall, this is driving the consumption and the growth which you saw in the previous chart of the country. And yeah. Now, also the important part is, which we all know, that India is a very, young and a large working population, right? And if you look at the chart on the left-hand side, you can see that almost 2/3 of the population will be either millennial or Gen Z by 2030. And that has a huge impact on the way we actually talk to the consumer as we go ahead. And this, if you look at for a period of 3 years or 7 years actually, you can see the change in the demographic of the country is profound. Somebody has left the phone here, by the way. Oh, Mike is there? Oh, that's easier. Thank you so much. I thought somebody was highlighting the phone. Thank you. All right. So that's the I don't know. I lost chain of thoughts. But yeah. And the second part is the country is also having nuclear families, right? And if you see the chart, the biggest impact of a nuclear family is that the consumption pattern is completely changing. If you see the per capita consumption in a nuclear family is almost more than 2 times of a large families. And the number of categories they buy are also significantly higher. And that also has an implication of the way we actually talk to the consumers, or we have a potential to grow. And it's only going to grow up, the nuclear families. And if you look at the other chart, which is basically about the consumption wealth and the urban population, and this is not a new news, right? About 40% of the population will be living in urban, and more importantly, it's on the right-hand side. There is going to be various segments of consumer, or in terms of income level, which will keep becoming bigger. So if you look at the right side chart, right, the elite and affluent, that percentage is going to grow significantly more, in the future, right? From 2018 to 2027, if you look at the percentage of elite from 3 to 6%, affluent from 21 to 38%, right? That's going to be a huge difference in the way the consumption of the brands or the products are going to happen in the time to come. And also, these consumers are getting even more digital native, right? And if you actually try to do a parallel of our economy versus China, at the time when China was same size as us, right? After that year, the consumption of different categories in China started growing significantly high double digit. So you can see on the right side, right? Consumer expenditure growth was about 19% up. Health spends on consumer, this is where Kenvue operates, was up by about 12%. And BPC, or beauty and personal care, was also up by 13%. So this is that inflection point where when the economy reaches a particular level, the consumption is supposed to expect it to accelerate significantly because people have much more money. And you saw in the previous charts, right, that the consumer is going to have much more money, and not only much more money, but the propensity to spend that money is much higher because the saving rate is coming down. So that will fuel the economy significantly faster. And, sorry. No. Yeah. And also if you look at, I think something went wrong with the slide. The picture is not supposed to be there, sorry for that. And also if you look at one of the big shift in the consumption is going to happen is between food and non-food. If you look at on the left side, this is 10, 11, 12 data. Whereas if you look at in rural and urban, rural, for example, non-food was 47 and 53, which is actually going to become 54 and 46. So the consumption is going to move from food, which is where the most of the money was spent earlier, to the non-food categories, and that's where the growth is going to come from. Actually, that same pattern you can see in the below chart, which is really about the urban chart, right? And the impact is in different categories, and I'm not going to spend time. This chart has got a little bit messed up with some picture coming in between. But the point is, right, the consumption is shifting from food to non-food. And also, this is very interesting chart for me because, and many of us who are part of this for different businesses will relate to this, right? Consumer sentiment has come back after a big drop earlier. But a key point here is if you look at on the right-hand side chart, right? We had a huge inflation challenge. Most of the companies ended up taking significant price increase in 2022. And all of us, including us, we took very high price increase because inflation was high. And if you look at the price increase, that was to the extent of 10%. But you look at the chart below, the volume growth took a huge beating, right? So it was minus 1.5. And that really created a big impact in the shape of the P&L for many companies. Most of the companies lost the consumption, most of the categories lost the consumption, and the impact mainly came from the price, right? And I think industry was quick to realize that that's not the right model or the P&L to run. And that's where the shift happens, where the price came down to reasonable level of about 3%, and that has a simple impact on the volume because you can see it's 6.4. And if you look at the combination of the two, it's still around 10%. The price plus volume in the previous years was about 10%, and price plus volume in the second part is also. So here the key part for learning for all of us has been, at least in Kenvue, is that the price volume mix is, balance is very, very critical. If you move towards one or other, it really has a huge implication on penetration levels and consumption levels of the category. But the good news is the consumer sentiment is coming back and the inflation is tapering down, and that's really the good news for all the players. So all of this is making big shifts in the way the consumer and the shopper is shopping, right? And that's obvious, right? These all have huge impact on the way we shop our products on a daily basis. What does that mean, right? So one impact is, and I mentioned that there are different levels of consumer, right? if you look at this chart, there are different types of consumer segments which are coming up. Earlier we used to say high income, medium income and low income, but that's not necessarily the case anymore, right? And there are different kinds of consumer which are coming up, and there are sophisticated rich, there are conservative rich, and you can see the line, and I'll just speak about one, and rest is very self-explanatory. So for example, sophisticated rich, these are the people who are really looking for best-in-class product. And that's why you see a significant rise in premium products, significant. You take any category, for example, even in baby category, where we have two brands, Johnson's Baby and Aveeno. 3 years back in baby category, our premium category contribution was less than 5%. Today, the premium, and when I'm using the word premium, this is not 10%, this is not 20% premium, this is not 30% premium, this is 3x premium. So Aveeno, Baby, and the players around that operate at 3 to 4 times the premium of Johnson Baby. This category is as high as 25% of the category. So people are willing to pay for a premium products as we go ahead. And that's the part of different types of consumer segment which is really impacting the consumption. And likewise for rest of the thing. I mean, obviously there is multiple types of segment, and hence the need for different kinds of product across the portfolio. And that's probably the downside of the sometimes portfolio, is that portfolio is also getting very proliferated, right? I mean, you have so many SKUs, so many kinds of line extension within the brand. But the manufacturers have to make sure that they really manage this efficiently. And then also the young consumer, right? We just talked about earlier that India is going to be very young population. And if you look at this, right, the digital is here to stay, and digital is changing the game completely. And if I cannot emphasize enough to the fact that digital is going to be the way we do business, and many times all of us have to make a choice between what is the best way to engage with the consumer, and especially in the premium segment, digital play a much bigger role than probably in the other segment. And this is also an interesting chart to talk about the consumer and the shopper behavior, right? If you look at this chart, is very simple, right? Saying this is the change in shopper behavior over a period of time. And these are the percentages of different kinds of behavior. And if you see the implications on the right side, right? So the behavior changes, for example, information center shopping, right? This basically means there is a huge impact of influencers. If your shopper is sitting in this type of a bracket, then you need to have a plan to make sure you use influencers to drive behavior change for this kind of a shopper. And the second change is really about trend-based shopping, time-saving service. Then you know this is the shopper which is really looking for convenience, right? In other words, e-commerce, quick commerce, and direct-to-consumer is where the way to go, right? And the third is really, and you can go one by one, right? And customized product. Personalization is big now, right? And especially in the beauty category, personalization is becoming bigger by the day. What is in it for me is more important than anything else, right? And this shopper and the consumer behavior both combined has a huge impact the way we talk to the consumer, the way we build our innovation, and the way we actually go to market with the consumer. And also, there is a big shift in the way the consumer is thinking, right? Gen Z consumer today is discerning, and it is eco-warrior, right? They are the consumer who are really looking for solutions which are really sustainable. They are not looking for solution just which is value for money, which is probably the case with many other kind of consumer, right? And Gen Z, which is 15-24 age group, right? They offer a huge opportunity, right? Because they are different, they are more aware, they are more discerning, and more environmental conscious, right? Than the previous generations have been in the past. Initially, it was a niche audience, right? But given a massive opportunity with Gen Z, purpose and sustainability will need a stronger place and role in the campaign and the part of marketing agenda as we drive ahead, right? And then this is also very critical. I was at the event by SKI and we talked about the consumer care, right? And this is the part where good for me, good for the environment is becoming very big, right? Apart from Gen Z, find consumers generally demanding more transparency. And transparency is the key word, right? More aligned to brands which are purposeful, as well as we hold them more accountable, right? And we are seeing a rise of consumer activism, influencer, leveraging power of social media to question brands, claims, science, what this does, what does that mean for the brands, right? And this requires all the brands to really commit to the highest quality standards, right? Really deliver high quality products. And at the same time, we need to anticipate consumer demands, right, and needs by offering innovative solution before problem arise to ensure customer well-being backed by science-backed claim, right? So, and also, if you look at the other thing which is happening is that brands which are winning are the ones which are social and influencer native brands, right? Because the brands are looking for science-backed claim, derm first beauty, community of Sherpan. Like this is how the brands are getting built today to make sure and this is very obvious, right? Because if you don't have all the ecosystem to convince a consumer, it's more likely than not that you are going to lose the consumer because somebody else is probably doing a better job of creating that ecosystem end to end to talk to the consumer. And then personalization, right? And in personalization, use of the latest tech, right? AI, VR, AR, I can keep going, right? And the significant usage of tech across consumer digital journey and bringing more efficacy. That's the name of the game as we go ahead with the consumer change. It's not supposed to be. All right. I don't know why the music is, but what does that mean for a marketer, right? So if I were to summarize, I would say that we need to, first point is we need to win in many India, right? As we were talking earlier in the previous charts, like this is to win in many India. There is no one India, which we all know. Premiumization is huge opportunity, right? And premiumization is not about the 10% or 15% price premium. Really, it's about a different level of premiumization. Purpose and sustainability is becoming very, very big for all the brands, right? And the fourth thing is really about transparency and science-backed brands. This is very critical for the people, for the brands which are operating in any space actually, and more importantly for the beauty brand. And the last but not the least is immersive experience. So how does this come to life for Kenvue is what I'm going to talk to you in. So first is, I mean, Many India I'm not going to speak about because that's very obvious how we talk to Many India, but really about going big on premiumization, right? So we are really looking at various things, right? So first is reimagining the marketing. We are also talking about immersive experience. No, why is it not moving? Oh, I was talking without. Why is this not moving? Now it's going. Okay, I don't know whether I saw that or not, but. This moves, but this doesn't move. It's got stuck. Some technology issue. All right, so this is the 5 things I was talking about, right? If I were to summarize saying, where are the few trends, right? So it's like we need to win in many Indias. premiumization is very big. Purpose and sustainability is very, very important for the brands. Transparency and science-backed will be a key play. And last is really about the immersive experience, right? Sorry for, there is something wrong and I kept going ahead. And at Kenvue, how are we doing this in terms of bringing the premiumization? So one is really about category leading premium brands. That's the fundamental of it. You need to have the right brand to make the premium play, right? Whether it's Aveeno, whether it's Neutrogena, you need to have a right proposition. And at the same time, we need to make sure that right proposition is backed with a superior product and which is with unmet need. For example, we launched Secure Nights. So night category is a big category in sanitary pads because women want a protection for the whole night. And this product is being launched for about a year, and we already have a very high share target. And I'm sorry, I'm not able to speak a lot of numbers because globally, we are supposed to announce our results on 7th May. And I've been instructed because we are in a quiet period. So I'm not supposed to talk about any numbers. So you have to bear with me. This event came in right at the quiet period. I didn't even realize that this is a quiet period and I had committed. So I didn't want to back out. But this is the time none of the managing directors or CEOs are supposed to speak to outside the company because it's US laws don't require us to be not talking to anybody outside. But that's why I'm being a little bit careful on what I say about specificity on the number, right? So please bear with me. And the last is really about science-backed and forward-looking for the brand on premiumization. And this is Johnson's Baby. I must tell you that in Aveeno Baby, when we were launching the brand, it is amazing that when you talk to the team and when you say this is the brand which we are going to position at 3 times the price index, obviously sometimes people fall off the chair, right? Saying, is there a consumer for this brand? In last few months of period, we have huge gains in this category with this brand, and that's because it's science-backed, it's based on a consumer need, and it's actually backed with very strong claims approved by ESCI. No worries on that. And now I just want to talk about, and I'll come back to it. I want to talk about this, right? Brands with purpose thing. So many of you know that Stay Free is a large player in sanitary pads. And the beauty of the Stay Free was we had a purpose, and DDP is our agency. I'm assuming some of the people are already sitting here. That's great. They've done a phenomenal job because one of the biggest things for the brand was how do we make sure that we bring this conversation on periods out in the open, right? So we started with the first with father, then we brought the brother into the mix, and now we are taking it to the next level. But the purpose was how do we make sure we give a purpose to a brand? And I want to play a video to show you what we are doing in this, right? Can I have, yes. Do I need to do anything or it'll play on itself?
फोकस रखो, स्ट्रेट स्केल में है. चलो.
इशिता, तुम्हारे स्कर्ट पे कुछ लगा है.
ए, मैं काम करूँ, चलो.
बट सर उसके.
Go to class.
सॉरी सर. दीदी इसमें क्या है?
वरुण, नीचे रखो. ये कोई पढ़ने की चीज है? चलो जाओ, मुझे अपना काम करने दो. गो.
पर मैंने
चलो जाओ अपने कमरे में.
सिक्योर एक्सेल की लीक लॉक टेक्नोलॉजी. गीलेपन को लॉक करें 12 घंटे.
पापा ये क्या है?
कुछ नहीं.
मम्मा, पीरियड्स क्या होता है?
बॉयज ये वर्ड नहीं बोलते. हाँ?
that's a good example of, in my mind, for a purpose, right? Because if you have a purpose for a brand, and if you are able to bring that purpose to life with the brand proposition, then really consumer is able to connect very easily. And I don't want to boost, but we are gaining quite big share on this brand as we speak. Thanks DDB, the team, for really developing a nice piece of communication which resonates very well with the consumer very effectively. And also I want to show you on this. Johnson's Baby is another brand, right? Some of you or most of you would know that we have gone through a little bit of a tough time on Johnson's Baby because of the recent challenges we faced on a PR crisis on the brand. But we have been able to develop now the communication to build the trust back with the mother. And that's the trust. Again, DDB team did the job. Trust from day one. And the second piece is really about transparency, because one of the biggest challenge we faced is that mother was saying, is your product fine? What is in your product that gives me comfort that I'm not using anything which is harmful for my baby? So that was the second pillar, and I'll show you the communication on that. And then obviously the demos, right? To make sure we are able to communicate the authenticity or the science behind our products. And last but not the least is reviews, right? Saying, am I able to hear from the mothers like me? And that's the way we are building our very beloved brand. By the way, I was in my younger days, I was the brand manager for Johnson's Baby in my earlier days. And in those times, our share used to be 90. So it hurts me when I see share much lower than it was before. It really pains me quite a lot. And this communication is a big step from where we were to where we are going, right? So I don't know how I play this. Which is missing, but we will stay with that. Something has gone wrong with the presentation.
Hello mommies, I noticed the QR code scanning for details product info. During my visit to the pharmacy, I scanned it. When I scanned the QR, I was so happy to see 100% ingredients across Johnson's Baby skincare products. They show all the ingredients used in their items using their AR technology feature. And when I noticed the ingredients, I was so relieved because they were all baby safe. Knowing exactly that ingredients are in the items I use for my child provides me a peace of mind. This knowledge helped me gain faith in them, giving me the confidence to make the greatest decision for my wonderful child. Scan their packs to experience this transparency for yourself.
And this is the influencer talking about how the easy it was to look at the transparency of the product, right? And I'm sorry, the first ad I'm not able to play, which is the new ad which we have just developed on Johnson's Baby. And then also we have a category which is completely different from a direct-to-consumer category, which is basically ORSL, right? We don't advertise this brand at all. Let me rephrase. We do advertise, but not to the consumer, but to the doctors or HCP, and advertise is a bad word. We talk to the doctors to make sure they understand our science. So the whole brand is built on a complete, very simple model, saying how do we tell the doctors about our science and the product, and then they will be able to recommend our product to the patient. So dehydration is very, very big in India, and most of the time we get confused with dehydration from only one thing, that we are out in the open and we are getting dehydrated. But that's absolutely not true. When you have a fever, you actually get dehydrated. And that's what we have communicated to the doctors, and doctors have understood that, and they have started writing our products. So it's the brand which is completely focused on how do we talk about the scientific evidence. We have clinicals to prove that. how do we do the scale up HCP education or healthcare professional education? And last but not the least is really the consumer education of really telling them why do you need a different kind of a product for hydration. Otherwise, most of the people think, if I have one glass of water, I'm actually fully hydrated, which may or may not be true because you lose a lot of electrolytes when you actually are dehydrated, and a product delivers on that. And on the same lines is really about our Aveeno baby. And this is the product I was talking to you about, right? And this is so I talked about Stay Free, which was direct to consumer. I talked about Orsil, which was only to HCP. And this is a mix of the two. So we do go to HCP to make sure that the doctor is writing prescription for sensitive skin. And it's very amazing to see in India, there are 24% of the babies which are actually having a sensitive skin problem when they're born. And that is where the HCP plays a role. But at the same time, we want to make sure that it's prevented by having a direct communication to the consumer. And I'll play the ad for you, which we have developed.
Aveeno Baby, the #1 pediatrician recommended brand in the US, made with prebiotic colloidal oatmeal. Our products help prevent dry, itchy, sensitive skin. Experience the power of oat for your baby's sensitive skin. Aveeno Baby, now in India.
And we are just using a digital communication right now to, it's a smaller brand, to communicate about the efficacy of the product and show the science behind that. So that's pretty much I had. Thank you very much for listening. I'm happy to have any conversation you have. Sure.
Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. And you mentioned that there is the large audience, the consumer age group is 15 to 24, which is going to be the key consumer group in the coming years. They're not necessarily earning that age group, right? So how are you as a marketer addressing that need of, one is the consumer who's consuming, but the spender who might be the parent in the family. So from a marketing and communication point of view, how what's the best practice to address that?
Yeah, and that's a very good question. What we are learning is that most of the time, especially in the upper segment, the decision maker still is the 15 to 24, even though the money may or may not come directly from the person. And at the same time, majority of them are also earning. And when I'm using the word earning, it doesn't need to be a full-time job, but they have a source of income, right? So both put together, the decision still lies with the person who is consuming the product. It's not necessarily different. However, in the lower strata, still the decision maker could be different. So our communication strategy has been very clear to target the same audience, which is 15 to 24 in that case. Yes, sir.
As I see it, more and more brands in India are getting into some kind of a PR crisis. And, the sort of scan on these brands have suddenly increased or gone multifold. I mean, J&J has been through one crisis, and you can see right now, I think, several brands are under the scanner. Maybe you have some advice for them based on your past experience?
I mean, I'll not claim that we did the best job of the managing that, but the couple of things on a hand side, because I think whatever decisions were taken at that time were right, but on a hand side, one of the thing is that we need to come out in the open and speak as a brand to the consumer, rather than consumer listening from different sources, right? It can be authorities, it can be media, it can be mothers like me. That doesn't help. The brand has to come out. Exactly. That's a good point, right? So the key point is come out and the brand has to talk, because mothers in this case or any other consumer in this case wants to hear from the brand, what is your point of view? And the point of view is very, very important. So they get some comfort. That's point number one. And the second point is that more like proactive engagement rather than reactive engagement, right? Because sometimes when the brands get into a trouble, they become a little bit more reactive, saying we will react when the need will arise, versus saying, okay, now we have a problem, let's go full on and really take head on whatever the crisis is. These are the two things which are critical beyond the other small thing. Yes, sir. Yes. Sorry, I'm not able to see at the back, but yeah.
Hello, Uday Singhani. Thank you very much, Manish. This was very insightful. My question is very simple. I really would like to understand that while retrospecting, what were the 3 lessons that one has learned from whatever has gone either right or wrong? And when you say prospecting, then what do you think would happen in the next 3 to 5 years? While you've shown a lot of slides and data, I would really like to get some very basic guidance on what do you see is likely to happen in the next 3 to 5 years, with regards to either marketing or growth or branding. That would be very helpful.
I thought I did for the future. Probably I can bring that slide up. But see, one of the things which we believe is, first is there are going to be multiple Indias, right? So companies have to plan for multiple Indias. That's first. Second is premiumization. And I want to again repeat, the premiumization does not mean 10 or 15% or 20% premium. It really means a different level, 2x, 3x, those products which can really deliver a different level of experience, and the satisfaction to the consumer is the second part of the piece. And third is consumer is becoming very aware, and they really want to know science-backed stories rather than simply, and I'm not trying to say the emotional stories are going away, but there has to be a science-backed claim for all the products which companies are trying to introduce. So that's the so-called 3 learnings for the future. Right in the back, we can sit over a drink and talk a lot more, but in the back, there are many learnings, right? So one of the learnings for us has been, as we were talking about in the crisis movement, make sure the brand speaks to the consumer, because consumer wants to hear from the brand, not from any other source. That's one of the biggest learning for us has been. That's one. Second thing is really, I don't know how to call it, but when I use the word multi or many India, there was a time when we used to think that the affluent consumer is sitting in urban or in a big cities, but that's not the case. There is the affluent consumer even in rural, and the job of a brand is to really understand how do you talk to the consumer which is affluent across the country rather than a particular geography, and that's the population which we need to find a way to connect to. And that's the role of a go-to-market and the media deployment, which we have to look at. So that's the second part. And the role of new go-to-market formats, right? Quick commerce and personalization is really the one which we should have caught the trend much earlier than probably when it became. I don't know if you see in the your own businesses, but quick commerce has grown multi-fold in no time. If you just go back 1.5 years back, quick commerce was very small part of the business. And today, you can't avoid it. You have to play the game, right? So how do you look at the new formats and what can they do to you as a brand and a business? And that's something which will be worth notice.
Thank you.
Pretty good. Oh. How am I doing on the time, by the way? Yeah.
How are you managing your efforts between new media and traditional media? So, as you mentioned, as you mentioned, quick commerce. What are you letting go of to accommodate quick commerce?
The way I like to answer that is, it doesn't matter which media you're using. I think the starting point is your brand has a certain reach goals, right? You can figure out how you are going to achieve those goals. It can be with traditional, it can be with new media. It doesn't matter, right? So when we are making your media plans, the starting point is not whether traditional or the new media is important. The starting point is to achieve a certain goal, what kind of a mix you need. And in that, if traditional media is 0, so be it, or traditional media is 100, so be it. It doesn't matter. Manisha.
Hi, good evening. First of all, thank you so much for an informative session. The question I wanted to ask is, if you have, when you have a portfolio of brands that span across life stages, does cross-promoting a brand with the other brands give you a better lift? Like, for example, would say promoting Stay Free to, or Johnson & Johnson's to a Stay Free user ensure they use your products across their life cycles, across different stages of their life cycles? Or does the risk of like a PR crisis in one brand affecting the other outweigh the benefits?
I'll answer this question in two ways, right? First of all, what we have seen is cross-promoting. When you're saying promoting, you mean you're telling the consumer to buy both together, right? That's what you mean by promoting, right? So the answer is straight no, right? It's very difficult to force a consumer to make a choice based on one brand for another brand. Forget about the brand. Today, it's very difficult within the brand. If you try to force a different variants, the consumer gets very uncomfortable, right? So for example, Stay Free Excel, and if I start promoting Stay Free nights with that, consumer is saying, hey, I will decide whether I want a night or not. You don't force the choice. So the different brands is absolutely no for us. Within the brand itself, it becomes quite challenging. Having said that, there are categories where you can have a regimen approach. Example, beauty. So you're selling a moisturizer and you want to add a serum. Maybe that's a good idea because that's a regimen thing. And there are certain consumers which are, easy to convince on a regimen. But across brands, that's not been the experience from our side. Manisha.
Okay. We see so many pieces of content today that are fake. Where news, which is not news, is going around, where, all of these WhatsApp forwards, which are talking about several things. And I wanted to check if in baby care practices, which is again an area where consumers are extremely vulnerable, if you've seen that happen, and if so, and even if that's not, very common, but, is there something that you're doing to gear yourself as an authentic source of information? And, how do you counter so much of misinformation, and particularly I'm interested in knowing whether you have any thoughts on that on the baby care category.
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, Manisha. Frankly, we see too much misinformation across all things, and misinformation can be very small and it can be very big, right? Unfortunately, first of all, we don't have a mechanism to track whether misinformation is happening or not, because sometimes it comes to our notice, sometimes it doesn't come to us notice, or sometimes it comes to our notice way late. The only approach right now we are doing, and I don't think so that's the best approach probably, is that we are dependent on our science and our studies to really refute the claims made by other players, which may or may not be right. And players, when I'm saying, I don't mean only the brands, but it can be an individual as well. But it's very haphazard, right? It's not a very concentrated effort to say, this is the best way to do it. And actually, this is becoming more critical, more than baby. It's actually becoming critical for our category in ourselves, because it's a food category, right? So that's where we are actually having a much more trouble than baby, because baby is still, it's very difficult to get through to the mother if she has made up a mind on a particular brand. But in food category, it's much more easier, right? So that's where we are finding more. So we use our legal department, and we sometimes use SK to manage that, but it's not like very well organized.
Hello Manish. Thank you for a lovely presentation. I'm Nipun, a marketing manager at Colgate Palmolive. I had a question regarding one of the slides that you had on volume growth. There are companies like Unilever which have taken conscious pricing actions to drive volume growth. As category leaders in most of the categories that you operate in, how are you looking at driving consumption or volume-led growth in the next 5 years?
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, we are really looking at the best inflex point of where after a certain price increase, your volume will start dropping. And we are doing those MMM studies very, very carefully to make sure we don't cross that level, because, and generally we have learned by each category what percentage of price will hold the volumes and will not drop the volume. And we are not going beyond that. And to add to that, the good part is inflation is coming down, right? Most of us are seeing our P&L, right? Our commodity cost has come down. So that is giving us significant amount of liberty to make sure either we don't take the price up or we drop the price even further, right? And that's where you're seeing many of the companies, right? And you see the results of all the FMCG companies. You can see the commentary very clearly that everybody is looking at making sure they are rationalizing the price in favor of volume growth. And that's the case with us as well. Pretty good. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
So much, sir. It's been an amazing session, a very interesting presentation, an interesting Q&A. So thank you so much, everybody who ended up asking questions to him. All right. So it is now time to welcome back on stage Mr. Sunil Kataria, sir, to present a token of gratitude to our speaker, along with Mr. Avinash Pandey, sir. Can we please have you on stage? And of course, we have our amazing speaker for this particular evening. Sir Manish Anandani, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation and gracing this evening with your presence and your insightful thoughts. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been lovely having all of you right here. And yes, that marks the close of this riveting evening. Let us hear a huge round of applause for one last time for all our presenters, our speaker, and our presenting partner, Kenvue, our supporting partner, ABP News, and Fortune Edible Oils and Foods, print media partners, the Free Press Journal, web media partners, AdGully, Indian Television, MXM, Media Brief, Media News for You, and our outreach partner, BTTV. It's been a pleasure having all of you here and being in the company of each of you. Do join us for dinner and drinks and have a fantastic night ahead. Good night, everybody. Thank you.